It was just dinner. Lyra had made her famous fish stew. Zuko invited his boys from college. Loud, cocky, flashy. One of them joked, "So what do you do, Lyra?" Before she could speak, Zuko laughed and said, "She tries to cook and live off me." A full-time burden, basically. The table erupted. Her smile cracked, but she didn't cry. She cleared the plates and whispered in her heart, "One day, I'll feed you all something you'll never forget." That night, Lyra was excited. She had cooked her favorite fish stew, hoping Zuko and his friends would enjoy it. She dressed nicely, smiled, and welcomed everyone warmly. But as the boys laughed and drank, things changed. One of them asked her, "So what do you do?" Before she could even answer, Zuko laughed loudly and said, "She tries to cook and lives off me." A full-time burden, basically. The table burst into laughter. Her hands shook, her heart dropped. She forced a smile, stood up quietly, and began clearing the plates, even though her soul was shattering. No one noticed the pain in her eyes. Not even Zuko, who continued to laugh like she was a joke. Lyra didn't say a word. She didn't yell or cry. She simply picked up her bag and walked out of the door, leaving the noise behind. The cold wind outside felt softer than the words she had just heard. Her tears fell, but she kept walking. Streetlights blurred as she wiped her face again and again, trying to hold herself together. She went straight to her sister Nalady's house. When Nalady opened the door and saw her standing there with red eyes and no words, she didn't ask anything. She just pulled Lyra into a warm hug. No questions, no pressure, just silence and comfort, because some pain is too deep to explain. Nalady knew that. Lyra sat on the edge of the bed that night, staring into the dark. She kept hearing Zuko's words over and over again. A burden. It hurt more than anything. But even in that silence, something inside her shifted. She wasn't sure what it was yet, but it was there, quiet, deep, and waiting to rise. That night didn't just break her, it woke her up. And while Zuko and his friends forgot the joke by the next day, Lyra never did. That moment would become the beginning of something they could never laugh away. Lyra didn't speak for days. Not to Nalady, not to anyone. She just stayed in her sister's small apartment, curled up in bed, staring at the ceiling. The words Zuko said played in her head on repeat. A full-time burden. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't forget. The shame felt heavy, like a rock on her chest. But in the middle of that silence, something inside her started to stir. She wasn't angry anymore. She was tired. Tired of being laughed at. Tired of being small. Tired of being silent. One morning, she got up before the sun. No makeup, no big plan, just purpose. She opened her drawer and pulled out a bracelet. It wasn't just any bracelet. It had belonged to her grandmother. Pure gold, passed down with love. She held it for a long time, kissed it, and whispered, "I'm sorry." Then she walked to the market and sold it. It hurt, but she knew what she had to do. With the small money she got, Lyra bought cooking supplies, a single pot, some ingredients, a portable gas stove, and a few disposable plates. She didn't have a business plan or a big name. All she had was her passion, her food, her truth. That evening, she found a quiet street corner near a bus stop. She set up her little stand and started cooking. The smell of her food filled the air. People slowed down. A few stopped. A driver asked, "What's that smell?" Lyra smiled softly and said, "Come and try." He did. Then he told another and another. That night, she sold out. The next day, she came back. A new dish, a few familiar faces, and a little more confidence. One pot turned into two. One corner turned into a small crowd. Some people came back just to talk. Some said her food tasted like home. Lyra listened to every word, not for praise, but for proof. Proof that she wasn't a burden, she was a blessing. She went home tired every night, but it was a good kind of tired, the kind that came from doing something real. Slowly, step by step, she was building something. Not just a food stand, but a new life, a new name, a new story. Zuko had crushed her spirit in front of everyone. But Lyra, she was rising, not loud, not flashy, just one pot at a time. And this time, it was her turn to serve. Not shame, but strength. It was a quiet Thursday evening when Lyra first saw him. She had just finished setting up her street food stand like she did every day. Her hands moved fast, stirring the soup, flipping the dough, serving with a tired but warm smile. She didn't notice the man in the blue shirt watching her from a distance. He waited until the small crowd thinned out before stepping forward. "Can I try the egusi soup?" he asked. She nodded and served him a plate. He sat on a bench nearby, took a bite, and closed his eyes like he was tasting something deeper than just food. When he finished, he looked at her and said, This is something special." Lyra just smiled politely. She had heard compliments before, but they never stayed. People ate and left. She didn't expect him to come back, but the next night he returned. Then again the next night, and again. Sometimes he didn't even eat. He just stood there, watched her cook, and talked to the people in line. He asked questions about the recipes, the ingredients, the way she mixed spices. Lyra began to notice how kind his eyes were, not curious in a nosy way, but in a respectful, gentle way. One night, after everyone had gone and Lyra was packing up, he waited. "My name is Kwabena," he said. "I manage a restaurant a few blocks away." She raised her eyebrows, unsure where this was going. "You don't belong under this tent," he continued. "Your food, your hands, they deserve more." Lyra stayed silent, unsure what to say. Then he added, "Come use my kitchen. After hours, no rent." Lyra looked at him like he was joking. "No rent? Why would you offer that to a stranger?" Kwabena smiled softly. "Because I tasted something in your food. Something raw, honest. I've been in the food business for a long time, and trust me, you can't fake that. It's not charity, it's belief." Lyra felt her throat tighten. No one had said words like that to her before, not even Zuko. For a moment she didn't know what to do, but she saw no trick in Kwabena's eyes, no game, just a man who truly saw her for what she was. Not a burden, not a joke, but someone with real talent and something powerful to give. That night, Lyra didn't just pack up food. She packed up fear, because for the first time in a long time, someone offered her more than pity. They offered her a chance. Lyra didn't expect things to grow so fast. She just wanted to cook in peace. Using Kwabena's kitchen after closing hours, she would enter quietly each night, set up her few ingredients, and cook from her heart. The smell of her food slowly filled the street outside, even when the lights were off. At first, only a few people knew where to find her, but those few told others, and those others brought more. Within a few weeks, it became something special. People whispered about the late-night lady who served meals that reminded them of home. Taxi drivers pulled over just for a quick bite. Nurses and doctors finishing their night shifts came straight from the hospital, still in scrubs. Young artists and musicians stopped by, craving something warm and real after long hours chasing dreams. They all came quietly, waited patiently, and left with full stomachs and grateful hearts. The amazing part, they didn't even know her name. They didn't ask. They just came for the food. The taste said enough. Then one night, a woman in glasses sat down and ordered egusi soup. She said little, ate slowly, and nodded to herself as if thinking deeply. Lyra didn't recognize her, but smiled like she did with everyone else. 2 days later, everything changed. A blog post appeared online with the title, "Best Egusi Soup in the City," and it's made by a woman named Lyra. The writer was a well-known food critic, someone people trusted. In the post, she wrote about the rich taste, the balance of flavors, the love in every bite. But what caught everyone's attention was the last line. "She cooks like she's feeding the parts of you no one sees." The post exploded. Shares, comments, people tagging friends, people asking, "Where is this place?" Others replying, "You haven't tried Lyra's food yet." The phone at Kwabena's restaurant wouldn't stop ringing. People were begging for reservations, pre-orders, even interviews. Lyra stood frozen as the calls kept coming in. She hadn't even named her cooking spot yet. She didn't plan for fame. She only wanted to be heard through her food. But now, the city was listening. She wasn't just the girl who got laughed at over dinner. She was the chef people were talking about. The one who went from a street corner to a secret gem hidden in the back of a quiet restaurant. All from one humble dish, one real recipe, and one heart that refused to give up. After the food critic's post went viral, things started moving fast. Lyra and Kwabena could hardly keep up with the orders, the messages, and the endless praise. People who had never noticed her before were now begging for a seat at her table. Some wanted to collaborate. Others wanted to invest. Lyra stayed grounded, focused on her food, her growth, and the love that started it all. She wasn't chasing fame, she was building something real. Then one day, Kwabena handed her a message with a small smile on his face. "There's a restaurant requesting a private tasting," he said. "Very big, big name. You might know it." Lyra read the name and froze. It was Zuko's restaurant, the same place he used to brag about, calling it the best in town. The same place where he once laughed with his friends while mocking her. The same place where she had once been treated like nothing. She almost said no, but then she remembered how far she had come. This wasn't about revenge, it was about showing up as the woman they never saw coming. So she agreed. On the day of the tasting, she walked into the restaurant with quiet confidence. No loud clothes, no heavy makeup, just herself. The manager greeted her kindly and led her to the kitchen, where a few staff and chefs waited to taste the food. She unpacked her ingredients, took a deep breath, and started cooking. The smell quickly filled the air. Rich, warm, unforgettable. Everyone watched her work, impressed by how calm and focused she was. Then the tasting began. Plates were passed around. First bites were taken. Faces lit up. Then someone walked in late, laughing loudly, still talking about some joke. It was Zuko. He didn't notice her at first. He was busy talking. But as he reached for a plate and looked up, their eyes met. His laughter stopped. The glass in his hand slipped and shattered on the floor. "Lyra?" he said, shocked, almost whispering. She didn't flinch. She simply looked at him, smiled politely, and continued serving the others. Zuko stood frozen, not knowing what to say. He looked around at the other chefs, now complimenting her food, asking for her recipe, calling her a genius. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. This wasn't the girl he laughed at. This was the woman everyone now respected, and she didn't need to say a single word to prove it. The building had always been busy with noise, movement, and memories, some good, some painful. But now, everything was about to change. The owner of the restaurant, an older man with tired eyes and a kind smile, was ready to retire. He had seen the world of food grow and change over the years, and he felt it was time to step away. Many people wanted to buy the place, but none of them truly moved him. Then Lyra came in. She didn't walk in with a big team or flashy promises. She came alone, with her heart and her dream. She showed him a plan, yes, but more than that, she shared a vision. She talked about food that healed, about second chances, about turning pain into purpose. She didn't just want a building, she wanted a new beginning, in the same place where her old self was once broken. The owner listened quietly, then smiled. "You remind me of why I started this in the first place," he said. "It's yours." And just like that, Lyra became the new owner of the very restaurant Zuko used to boast about. She didn't waste time. The first thing she did was rebrand the entire space. New name, new colors, new menu, new soul. She wanted it to feel different, not just look different. The sign outside changed, and with it, so did the energy. When it came time to decide on the staff, Lyra didn't let emotions lead her. She remembered the laughter, the mockery, the way they had all joined in with Zuko, treating her like she was nothing. So she kept only 2 staff members, the ones who treated everyone with respect, the ones who saw her even before the fame. The rest? Gone, including Zuko and every one of his friends who had once laughed so loudly. No drama, no shouting, just a quiet message that she was no longer the woman they could ignore or insult. Zuko didn't see it coming. One day, he was bragging in the staff room. The next, he was packing his things while Lyra signed the papers. He didn't even get a goodbye. Lyra stood in the kitchen, now hers, took a deep breath and smiled. Not because she had won, but because she had grown. She didn't just buy a building. She took back her power and rebuilt her story, brick by brick. The day of the grand reopening finally arrived. After weeks of planning, painting, and preparing, the restaurant stood ready, fresh, warm, and glowing with a new name, Burden. The name was printed in gold letters on a black signboard above the entrance. It stood out, bold and powerful. People in the neighborhood saw the flyer everywhere. Introducing Burden, a taste you'll never forget. At first, some people were confused. Why would anyone name a restaurant Burden? It sounded heavy, even sad. But curiosity grew. Everyone remembered the food that had gone viral, the blog post, and the mystery woman behind it all. And when they realized Lyra was the chef and now the owner, they came in numbers. From the moment the doors opened, the place filled with energy. People walked in, sat down and looked around. The decor was soft, welcoming, with pictures of women cooking, laughing and living. The menu was small but rich with flavor. Every dish had a story behind it. Every bite felt like it was made with love, pain and healing. Lyra didn't cook in the back like most owners. She stood where people could see her. She served dishes herself. She smiled, nodded, and let the food speak. And it did. One by one, people tasted the meals, and something happened. They didn't just eat, they felt. Many cried silently. Some closed their eyes while chewing, like they were remembering something long forgotten. One woman whispered, "It tastes like my mother's last hug." Another man said, "This soup healed something in me." Lyra didn't need to say much. The food said it all. Outside, people gathered just to see what the buzz was about. Among the crowd was Zuko. He wasn't there to eat. He was just walking by when he saw the sign. He stopped, read the name, Burden. He didn't laugh this time. His face went pale. He didn't need to step inside to know the truth. He understood, immediately. He wasn't just someone she had fired. He was the reason behind the name. The insult he once threw at her, the word he used to embarrass her, was now the title of the most talked about restaurant in town. He stood there for a while, watching people enter, hearing the laughter, seeing the joy, feeling the weight of what he had lost. And Lyra, she was inside, glowing, not from revenge, but from purpose. The girl he once called a burden had become a blessing to others, and the world was finally tasting it. It started with a simple message in her inbox. A food blogger wanted to meet Lyra and talk about her journey. At first, she was unsure. She didn't think her story was special enough for an interview, but Kwabena encouraged her, saying, "People need to hear where this flavor comes from." So she agreed. The blogger came the next afternoon, notebook in hand and eyes full of curiosity. She asked about Lyra's cooking style, her favorite dishes, and how she developed such deep flavors. Lyra answered humbly, saying it was all about patience, love, and learning from pain. Then came the final question. Why name it Burden? Most people would choose something fancy or sweet. Why that word? Lyra looked down at her hands for a moment. Then she smiled gently and said, "Because every burden I carried made me stronger. That word used to hurt me. Now it reminds me of how far I've come. I carry those heavy moments with pride now. And through food, I carry others too. With dignity, not shame." The blogger just stared at her, moved. She wrote the quote down word for word. The interview lasted only 30 minutes, but the moment felt powerful, honest, raw, and real. When the article went live, it took only a few hours for people to start reacting. The post was simple, with a picture of Lyra in her apron, standing in front of the restaurant sign, smiling softly. Below it was her quote about the meaning of burden. Something about those words hit people deeply. It spread like wildfire. By the end of the first day, thousands had shared it. By the second day, people were tagging friends, writing comments like, "This is what healing looks like," and "She turned her pain into purpose." By day 3, the post had been shared over 2 million times. Big news outlets started calling. Magazines wanted to feature her. Even TV shows reached out for interviews. But Lyra stayed calm through it all. She didn't let the attention change her. She still cooked every day. She still greeted her guests with the same warm smile. And she still served every dish with heart. She didn't want fame. She wanted to feed people, not just their stomachs, but their souls. The name that once felt like a curse had now become a symbol of strength. And all over the internet, people who had once felt small, broken, or forgotten were finding hope in one woman's quiet power to turn pain into something beautiful. One quiet morning, just before the restaurant opened for the day, Lyra was arranging flowers near the window when the bell above the door rang softly. She turned around, and there he was, Zuko. He didn't look the same. His clothes were neater, his voice quieter, and the usual pride in his eyes was gone. He stood at the entrance like someone unsure of his place, holding his hands together, nervous. "Hi, Lyra," he said gently. She didn't reply. She just looked at him calmly, not angry, not surprised. She had expected this day might come. "I didn't mean what I said back then," he started. "I was stupid, immature. I didn't think about how it would make you feel. I guess I was just trying to impress my friends, and I ended up hurting the only person who ever truly cared for me." He paused, then looked around the restaurant. "Look at you now," he said. "This place is beautiful. You're amazing. I just wanted to say I'm sorry." Lyra's eyes didn't soften. She listened, but she didn't move. Then she glanced over at Kwabena, who was standing near the counter. He didn't say a word, but his presence was calm and strong, like always. Lyra turned back to Zuko, stepped forward, and spoke with a voice steady and clear. "You taught me my value by discarding me," she said. "When you laughed at me, when you embarrassed me in front of your friends, you made me feel like I was nothing. But it was in that moment, when I walked away from your table, that I started finding my true strength." Zuko opened his mouth to speak, but Lyra held up her hand gently. "I don't hate you," she said. "In fact, I thank you, because if you hadn't treated me that way, I might have stayed small. I might have never pushed myself to rise." She glanced back at Kwabena again, who gave a small, supportive nod. "You see, I don't need your apology to move forward," she continued. "I already did. This," she said, motioning to the restaurant, the flowers, the people working behind her, "is my piece, and it doesn't include the past I had to outgrow." Zuko stood there for a few seconds longer, then slowly nodded. "Take care, Lyra," he said softly, before turning and walking out the door. As the door closed behind him, Lyra took a deep breath and smiled, not because he was gone, but because she knew now, without a doubt, that she had truly healed. Lyra's story didn't end with just one restaurant. In fact, it was only the beginning. After the viral post and the success of the first Burden location, people from all over started asking her to open more branches. But Lyra didn't just want to grow big, she wanted to grow right. She used the money she earned not for fancy cars or flashing lights, but to build something that mattered. Within 2 years, Burden had 3 branches across the city. But what made them special wasn't just the food, it was the people behind the counters, in the kitchen, and on the floors. Each restaurant was filled with women who had their own painful stories, women who had been laughed at, rejected, or told they weren't enough. Some had been jobless for years. Others had been told their dreams were silly. Lyra welcomed them all. She didn't ask about their past. She looked at their hearts. She trained them not just to cook, but to believe again. She gave them the same chance Kwabena once gave her, and just like her, they bloomed. In every Burden kitchen, there's a sign on the wall, simple but powerful. It reads, "Don't cook for their approval, cook from your truth." Those words became a daily reminder for every woman who walked through the kitchen doors. A reminder that their worth wasn't tied to someone else's opinion, that their food, just like their voice, mattered. Customers didn't just come for the meals anymore, they came for the spirit, the energy, the love. You could feel it in every dish. There was laughter in the dining room, hugs between staff, and tears from guests who felt something more than full. They felt seen. Lyra no longer needed to prove anything. She had built more than a business. She had built a home for those who had none, a place where pain was turned into power, a kitchen where no one was mocked, no one was forgotten. She didn't just fire the people who once mocked her. She hired the ones the world overlooked. She didn't just cook food, she fed futures. And as she walked through each location, smiling at the women laughing and stirring pots, she knew this was what healing looked like, not just for herself, but for so many others who had once been called a burden too. To every woman who's ever been laughed at, silenced or underestimated, your story isn't over. It's just heating up. Serve them success from your truth.